What was the sort of process?
I was really inspired by a thing called NetSquared in the States. It has a similar sort of mission. You know, their tagline is remixing the web for social change. And I went to their first ever conference, and I was pretty inspired by it. And at the time, I was working for Amnesty, working in human rights, and getting into the whole Web 2 thing. Just thinking that I could see some of the potential in unlocking a whole different way of addressing social issues. And I've been kind of, working with that frustration that a lot of organisations aren't quite ready to take that on. And that we just needed to, get on and do something about it, really.
Yeah. And now we're sort of halfway through the event. How does it feel to actually see it happening in reality when it's been a sort of plan for such a long time?
Well, it was amazing last night when there was a couple of short instructions to what it was all about, and then the request was, okay, now get on and talk to each other and make it happen. And the volume of noise, it was a wall of noise, and it wasn't a buzz, it was an uproar. And I think at that moment I sort of realised that something was going to happen. It was going to really go somewhere. I mean, today's really interesting, totally different. We're at a totally different point now. We're right in the middle of process. I think people are going to have to shifting gear from the broad vision of the social issue to the hard question of you're going to have to deliver a prototype product by 2 o'clock tomorrow morning involving this technology. You've got to make it happen. Very different perspectives, and really reveal some of the tension within Social Innovation Camp as well, of geek expertise on the one hand and people who are immersed in a social issue. I mean, the whole camp is a mashup of those two things, and there is a tension, but we're trying to bring them together and say, to address this great driving social need, there's something quite simple you can do with this, low barrier technology, and get a result which will have consequences and consequences and consequences. So we're looking to in the words of the founder here, Michael Young, we're looking for disruptive innovations, but right now, halfway through, we're looking for a bit of benign ruthlessness as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that pressure to actually come up with something is really sort of actually quite constructive, because it means that's one of the most interesting things for our video. Is that we're capturing this kind of conflict between what people want to do and what is actually realistic.
Right.
And I think that's a really interesting sort of edge to the whole thing. It's like, okay, what can we actually do in the time that we've got? And I think that that's one of the dramas, I say, that's unfolding.
I've a foot in both camps. I guess that's why I'm part of the Social Innovation Camp Collective. Really, on the one hand, I've got a long background in activism and NGOs, and so, but I'm a neo geek. So I understand that sort of exciting potential of simply being able to sit at a computer and make stuff happen, and as you say, we're trying to make that a creative tension, and bring NGOs out of their, people on the social issue side, out of their reticence, really, and sort of getting them stuck in.
I mean, some of the things that I've just been chatting to people over lunch and stuff like that, some people have been saying, which I think is an interesting point, is that big organisations, even sort of medium-sized organisations, can't innovate because the structure just won't allow it. I mean, and it's about one of the sort of things that might come out of this is a way of having a sort of organisational structure which allows innovation.
Right.
I mean, do you think that's a point?
In my experience, the reason why I'm not in a large NGO anymore is exactly because of that. I couldn't really take the tension between the possibility and the ability of the organisation, of the bureaucracy, essentially, to respond to that. I have to say, I have a fairly strong position on that. These organisations aren't set up to do that, no matter what their mission is about. But on the other hand, there's a flip side to that as well, which is posed to me by somebody from the Witness Video Hub, which is a human rights project, sort of YouTube for human rights, really great project. But the guy was saying, okay, look at the mass involvement around something like a tsunami, around Burma, around Tibet, whatever it is. There's the flip side. Okay, what are the appropriate structures to sustain things around these kind of innovative processes? You have the flip side, which is a wave of attention, a wave of sort of online engagement at that first superficial level. But how do you extend that? How do you draw that out? How do you make that sustainable and real? The kind of change that the Open University was, a really big, lasting social change, but without going around the loop, without building another bureaucracy. It's an open question. That's not what the camp was set up to do. To answer that question, it was simply set up to prove a point, come out with some product. But obviously, because it's raising all those questions, I hope that it becomes part of dealing with that stuff as well.
I mean, if there is a message for these large organisations, what do you think it is in terms of like how things problems are just being solved here, as if they're just solvable problems?
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think I mean, the internet and the web and social web and everything, I mean, the social web says by its name, but it doesn't exist in isolation from society. More and more, as I step back from this stuff, look at the social memes that are being expressed online and offline at the same time, and there is a lot more of a tendency not to rely on problems in the world being solved by a large top-down institution. I think that's kind of run out of steam. And people are looking for other ways to do it, and people are reclaiming a little bit of the DIY activity, people are reclaiming a little bit of the sort of grassroots energy that has been there at different times in history, and people are also bringing out some of those other themes that are like transparency. That's a really big theme for me around a lot of the internet developments around some of these projects as well. It's the ability to make visible what is otherwise hidden is itself a powerful sort of social motivator. So I think the message is that I'm sure that there are ways that existing organisations can support this stuff, but there's also something they have to face up to, which if they ignore this stuff and turn a blind eye to it, there's going to be NGO startups anyway. There's going to be people addressing these issues, social startups. That's really the space we're in, and bring it on.
Yeah. Okay. One last question is this is just more of a sort of like procedural question. What kind of things do you think we should be looking out for as this unfolds over the next few hours and tomorrow? What kind of things do you think we really need to make sure we get on camera?
I mean, the central issue actually has already come out for me, which is this kind of a drama between the different actors, really, the people immersed in the social issues and the people who are sort of geeks. And I don't know what your experience is, but I've been around all the different projects, and they're so different. From the room full of people discussing things in abstract to the line of geeks on computers passing parameters to each other. These are all sort of aspects. It's the tension, but how do we bring the tribes together? To understand the potential in this thing, and I think fundamentally this is about naming something new. There's a new kind of activity going on here. There are people trying to express it. Clay Shirky, Charlie Ledbetter. There are people trying to articulate this new thing that's happening for us. And if something like that came out of this camp as well, that'd be such a win.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting how the geeks in all the projects have formed lines. Like there's a line of geeks in each. That's one of the sort of similarities. Apart from in the
lines and circles.
Apart from in the dad
should be the symbol.
And the My CV projects, where there's only one geek, and one geek can't really form a line. But anyway, thank you very much.
That's brilliant. I like lines and circles. It's a brilliant sort of
comedy narration.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.